Emmanuel Acho just walked onto a national platform and declared that the WNBA would be better off without Caitlin Clark. Better off. Without the single human being who dragged this league out of total obscurity and into the mainstream conversation. Without the player who got every single person in that league chartered flights, bigger paychecks, and a media deal that actually matters. He said it on camera with total confidence, as if the numbers don't exist, as if we can't pull up the receipts, as if Dave Portnoy wasn't about to systematically dismantle every single word that came out of his mouth. Welcome back, this is Baskley, and today we are documenting the moment a mainstream sports analyst tried to rewrite history in real time and got absolutely torched for it. Before we walk you through exactly how Portnoy broke this down piece by piece, I need you to understand what Emmanuel Acho actually said, because the audacity of it is almost hard to believe. He went on the speakeasy and made the argument that Caitlin Clark has become a distraction. A distraction, not a franchise player, not a generational talent, not the reason the WNBA's television viewership exploded. A distraction. And then he took it further. He said that now that Caitlin has gotten the league over the threshold, now that people are watching, the league doesn't need her anymore. Thank you, Caitlin. We can take it from here. Those were his words. As if the WNBA is some kind of rocket ship that just needed a little push to reach orbit. And now that it's up there, you can jettison the booster and coast on momentum. Let me be entirely clear with you right now. That is not how any of this works. That is not how television contracts work. That is not how viewership works. That is not how consumer behavior works. And Dave Portnoy is about to explain that to Emmanuel Acho like he's a child who just tried to argue that the sun revolves around the earth. Here's what Acho said, word for word. He claimed that the WNBA at this juncture in time would be better without Caitlin Clark because she is a bigger distraction than she is an additive. He said Caitlin Clark has gotten the WNBA over the necessary threshold they needed. Now people are watching. Now we realize there's talent in the W, talent actually even greater than Caitlin Clark. And that right there is where the entire argument collapses. Because Emmanuel Acho just told on himself, he just admitted that he does not watch this league. He cannot name 8 players he's watched recently. He's talking about Olivia Miles, Paige Buchers, Kelsey Mitchell, as if any of those names are moving the needle the way Caitlin Clark moves the needle. And they're not. The data is absolutely brutal on this point. When Caitlin Clark was out with injury last season, WNBA viewership dropped 50%. 50%. The same broadcasting partners that Emmanuel Acho thinks are going to be thrilled about a Caitlin-less future watched half their audience vanish the moment she wasn't on the floor. And these are not small market regional broadcasts we're talking about. These are national television windows, games that were supposed to be marquee matchups. And the second Caitlin Clark's name wasn't on the marquee, the viewers turned the channel. That is not a threshold moment. That is not a league that has arrived. That is a league that is entirely, catastrophically dependent on one player, and Emmanuel Acho wants you to believe the opposite. Dave Portnoy did not let that slide, not for 1 second. When the host asked him why the WNBA seems so hesitant to embrace Caitlin Clark, why the league sometimes feels actively antagonistic toward her, Portnoy's answer was immediate and surgical. He said it's the worst marketed league in the history of leagues. They're absolute morons. That's the answer, and he's right. This is not a complicated mystery. This is not some deep sociological puzzle that requires a PhD to decode. The WNBA has the single most marketable player in the history of women's professional basketball. A player who sells out arenas, a player who drives television ratings, a player who gets casual sports fans to tune in, and the league treats her like an inconvenience. Portnoy went further. He said he doesn't think this is about race or sexuality, even though that's the narrative a lot of people try to push. He pointed out that the WNBA has had white superstars before. Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Breanna Stewart. This is not new territory. What is new is the scale of Caitlin Clark's impact, and the fact that she was anointed before she even showed up. That's the word Portnoy used, anointed. Nobody has ever come into the league like she has, and the jealousy, the envy, the hypocrisy around it is suffocating. The establishment does not like that she was crowned the queen of the league before she played a single professional minute, and they have spent her entire rookie season trying to make a point about it. They want to prove that she's not special. They want to prove that the league doesn't need her, and in doing so, they are sabotaging their own product. Let me walk you through what that sabotage actually looks like, because this is not abstract. This is documented. Caitlin Clark gets treated differently on the floor than virtually every other player. She gets hammered on drives with no whistle. She gets undercut on jump shots with no technical fouls. She gets shoved in transition with no suspensions. And when the media asks about it, the league office gives you corporate non-answers. The commissioner has made statements that are borderline asinine when it comes to acknowledging Caitlin's importance. Team owners have gone on record downplaying her impact. Opposing players have openly dismissed her. And the message is clear. The WNBA does not want to admit how much they need Caitlin Clark, because admitting that would mean admitting that the league was not fine before she got there. Portnoy nailed this point. He said the only reason WNBA players are flying private now is because of Caitlin Clark. The only reason they have a new CBA with significantly higher salaries is because of Caitlin Clark. The only reason the media is covering this league with any kind of sustained attention is because of Caitlin Clark. And somehow, in the minds of people like Emmanuel Acho, acknowledging that is seen as disrespectful to the other players. As if giving Caitlin her flowers means taking something away from everyone else. That is not how this works. When LeBron James entered the NBA, the league didn't pretend he wasn't the biggest draw. They built the entire marketing strategy around him. When Tiger Woods dominated golf, the PGA Tour didn't say, well, we don't want to make it all about Tiger, let's focus on the other guys. They rode that wave as far as it would take them, because that is what you do when you have a once-in-a-generation talent. But the WNBA is doing the opposite. They are actively suppressing their own star, and Emmanuel Acho wants you to believe that's a good thing. He wants you to believe that the league has reached some kind of critical mass where Caitlin is no longer necessary. He wants you to believe that fans are tuning in now for A'ja Wilson and Olivia Miles and Kelsey Mitchell, and that the Caitlin Clark era can quietly end without anyone noticing. That is pure fantasy. That is not supported by a single data point, and Dave Portnoy shredded him for it. Here's the part that Emmanuel Acho doesn't want to talk about, the part that the establishment doesn't want you to focus on. Television deals have expiration dates. The WNBA just signed a massive new media rights package, and that package was negotiated in large part because of the ratings Caitlin Clark generated. The networks looked at the numbers from her rookie season, saw the spikes, saw the sold-out arenas, saw the social media engagement, and they wrote a check. But those same networks are going to be watching very closely over the next few years. And if the ratings start to slide, if the momentum starts to fade, if Caitlin Clark's impact starts to wane because the league has beaten her down or driven her out or simply refused to build around her, those networks are going to remember. And when it comes time to renegotiate, the WNBA is going to be in a very different position than they were this time around. Emmanuel Acho said Caitlin got the necessary eyes there, but now that the eyes are there, we don't necessarily need her anymore. That is the logic of someone who has never had to sell a product in their life. The eyes are not there permanently. The eyes are there because Caitlin is there. The moment she's not, the eyes leave. We already saw it happen when she missed games due to injury. We already have the proof. And yet Acho is on national television arguing the opposite, as if the data doesn't exist. Portnoy called it out directly. He said Acho doesn't watch the league. He's talking about the WNBA because it's NFL off-season, because the NBA playoffs are over, because he has nothing else to fill airtime with. And that is obvious. You can hear it in the way Acho talks about the league. He's not citing specific games. He's not breaking down rotations. He's not talking about defensive schemes or offensive efficiency. He's just throwing out names. Paige Bueckers, Olivia Miles, Kelsey Mitchell. As if saying their names is the same thing as proving they have Caitlin Clark's impact. They don't. And everyone who actually watches this league knows they don't. Let's talk about what Acho said Caitlin needs to stop getting. He said the WNBA needs to stop putting Caitlin Clark on posters. The WNBA and the officials need to stop altering the rules for Caitlin Clark. The WNBA and opposing players need to stop treating Caitlin Clark more gently. Her coach needs to be cognizant of how she talks to her in public because it's going to look like there's an issue. Unless we can take off our gloves for Caitlin Clark and stop trying to act like she's a messiah, the WNBA could and would be better off without her. At least without this version of everybody coddling and caressing and catering to Caitlin Clark. Let me repeat that so it sinks in. Emmanuel Acho thinks the problem is that Caitlin Clark is being coddled. Coddled. This is the player who got body-checked by Chennedy Carter with no suspension. This is the player who got flagrant fouled by Angel Reese with minimal consequences. This is the player who has been physically targeted all season long while the referees swallow their whistles. And Emmanuel Acho thinks she's being treated too gently. That is not just wrong, that is delusional. That is the kind of take you make when you are not watching the games, when you are not paying attention to the actual product, when you are just repeating talking points you heard somewhere else. Dave Portnoy destroyed that argument. He said Caitlin gets nothing. She gets treated and attacked and harassed differently than virtually every player. She's had it since she entered the league. And the league is rough to begin with. There are chippy plays all over the floor. But people are watching Caitlin specifically. People are watching the league specifically for Caitlin. And when you see her getting abused with no whistle, when you see no suspensions, when you see quotes from team owners and players and the commissioner that are just asinine, it becomes clear they don't want to accept how important she is. And that's the core of this entire controversy. The WNBA does not want to accept that Caitlin Clark is the reason they are relevant right now. They want to believe that the league was on the verge of a breakthrough anyway, and Caitlin just happened to show up at the right time. They want to believe that the talent was always there, and people just needed to be reminded to pay attention. They want to believe that this moment is about the collective, about the league as a whole, about all the players who have been grinding for years in obscurity. And I understand that impulse. I understand why the old guard feels defensive. But feelings don't change facts, and the fact is Caitlin Clark is the single biggest reason the WNBA is in the national conversation right now. Not the only reason, but the biggest reason. And pretending otherwise is not just dishonest, it's actively destructive. Portnoy made the point that the league doesn't know where its bread is buttered. And that is the perfect way to describe this. The WNBA has been handed a gift. They have been handed a player who can do what no one else in the history of the league has been able to do, which is get casual sports fans to care. And instead of building around her, instead of protecting her, instead of marketing her the way the NBA marketed Magic and Bird and Jordan and LeBron, the WNBA is trying to diminish her. They are trying to spread the credit around. They are trying to make sure no one player gets too much attention. And in doing so, they are fumbling the bag in real time. Emmanuel Acho said that unless the league can take off the gloves for Caitlin Clark, unless they can stop treating her like a messiah, the league would be better off without her. Let me flip that around. The league will be worse off without her, significantly worse off, measurably worse off. The television ratings will drop. The ticket sales will drop. The social media engagement will drop. The mainstream media coverage will drop. And when that happens, when the WNBA goes back to being a niche product that only hardcore fans follow, Emmanuel Acho will not be talking about it anymore. He will move on to the next thing. He will go back to covering the NFL and the NBA and whatever else fills his airtime. And the WNBA will be left wondering what happened. Dave Portnoy sees this clearly. He called the league absolute morons for the way they've handled Caitlin Clark, and he's not wrong. This is not a complicated situation. This is not a nuanced debate. This is a league that has been given a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and they are squandering it because they care more about internal politics than they do about growing the product. That is not sustainable. That is not a strategy. That is a slow-motion collapse disguised as principle. Here's what I want every single person watching this video to understand. Caitlin Clark is not the problem. Caitlin Clark is the solution. She is the reason the WNBA has leverage right now. She is the reason the players got a better CBA. She is the reason the league is flying private. She is the reason the media is paying attention. And if the league continues to treat her like an inconvenience, if they continue to let her get physically abused on the floor with no consequences, if they continue to downplay her impact in public statements, they are going to lose her. Maybe not literally. Maybe she'll keep playing. But they will lose her cultural relevance. They will lose her ability to move the needle. And once that happens, it is not coming back. Emmanuel Acho does not understand this because Emmanuel Acho does not care about this league. He cares about having a hot take that gets attention. He cares about being contrarian. He cares about positioning himself as the guy who is willing to say what everyone else is afraid to say. But what he said is not brave. It's not insightful. It's not even interesting. It's just wrong. It's wrong on the numbers. It's wrong on the history. It's wrong on the strategy. And Dave Portnoy exposed that in less than 5 minutes. I am going to put my name on this. If the WNBA's television ratings do not drop significantly the next time Caitlin Clark misses extended time, come back here and roast me in the comments. But I am not wrong. The pattern is too clean. The numbers are too clear. Emmanuel Acho is peddling a fantasy. The WNBA is the worst marketed league in professional sports. Caitlin Clark is the only reason most people are paying attention. And the moment she is no longer the focal point, the moment the league decides they don't need her anymore, the audience is going to evaporate. Caitlin Clark came into this league and single-handedly changed it in a way that no other player or group of players could. She brought eyeballs, she brought revenue, she brought legitimacy, and now Emmanuel Acho wants you to believe the league is better off without her. That is not analysis. That is not commentary. That is pure unfiltered nonsense. And the fact that he said it on a national platform, with total confidence, tells you everything you need to know about how disconnected the mainstream sports media is from the actual product. Dave Portnoy gets it. The fans get it. The broadcasters who watch their ratings collapse when Caitlin was injured get it. The only people who don't get it are the ones running the league and the talking heads like Emmanuel Acho who are more interested in generating controversy than telling the truth. Drop your most honest take in the comments below. Is Emmanuel Acho the most out-of-touch analyst in sports media right now, or is there someone worse? I want every opinion that is willing to commit to one side. And if you think Acho is right, if you genuinely believe the WNBA would be better off without Caitlin Clark, I want you to explain how that works when the viewership dropped 50% the last time she was out. Hit the notification bell because this conversation is not over. The league is going to keep making decisions that either build around Caitlin or push her to the margins, and we are going to document every single one. We will see you in the next video.